Welcome to this podcast is making me thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is episode 54. In this episode, we welcome a veteran actress of the stage, screen, and television. She's the author of a well-received book, Odd Woman Out, an exposure of essays and stories. She burst onto the scene on the ABC late night live comedy hit Fridays. You know her from Parker Lewis Can't Lose, Rugrats, All Grown Up, and of course as Robin in the season 5 Seinfeld episode written by Larry Charles, The Fire. Please welcome Melanie Chartoff. Melanie, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Melanie, it's such an honor to have you on the show. So Seinfeld, take us back, 1994. Obviously you did Fridays with Larry David, Michael Richards. We know the connection with Hirschfeld, right? Probably with Married with Children and Parker Lewis Can't Lose. But how did the Robin role come about? Can you touch on that a little bit? And was there an audition?
Actually, no. I had known Larry for a very long time before we did Fridays. Actually, we were kind of both failures at stand-up at the Improv Club in New York. I won't say failures. Everybody found it very interesting, but we both had premise acts that weren't really meant for stand-up. They were meant for other things, hence my book. We just hadn't found our forms yet. Clearly, Larry found his forms. So he felt very familiar to me when we went and did Fridays together. It was like my cousin was there. It was kind of comforting in a way. And I remember I had a FEMA guy here. We had just had the earthquake in 1994. And he was sorting through the bricks in my chimney that had collapsed. It was like dominoes. Everybody's chimneys fell into everybody else's driveways on this block. And I was in a whole other place when a producer called my agent, and my agent called me on a Sunday asking if I could come in really fast and do this role they were writing in for me, a new girlfriend for George. And so we haggled it out. And of course I said yes. It wasn't my favorite role I had seen, but some of the girlfriend roles had some really funny business. And I was basically a straight girlfriend whose only distinction was that she had a child. And this was new to George. And so I said yes, because I wasn't sure how long the show would run, if there'd be another offer. And I guess I went in the next day and we rehearsed a little and then we shot it the next day. It was a very quick kind of spin around. And for the show, it was kind of momentous because this was the episode where I have a child. I'm having a birthday party for the child. My mother on the walker is at the party. All these little children are playing happily, and there's a hamburger fire in the kitchen. And in his desire to get the hell out of the apartment before anybody else, he knocks over my mother on the walker and most of the small children.
Yes.
And then we have a confrontation later in the episode where the fireman, Bozo the Clown, played by, the guy that directed Iron Man.
Jon Favreau.
Oh, Jon Favreau.
Yeah, Jon Favreau.
Clown. Just like Bozo the Clown.
Bozo the Clown.
Yeah. And the fire department and myself, we were all putting George on the pillory saying, why did you knock everybody over? And he said he was leading the way out.
Yeah, of course. He was the
hero. And
he was the hero.
Women and children should go first. So that was of Larry's misanthropy to come, where he's sort of is like Don Quixote lancing at all the traditions of yore and finding fault with them and questioning everything and changing the reality. So
yeah, it was a classic George for sure. You mentioned your book as far as maybe finding your voice. It's a very personal book. I mean, you definitely, the title speaks for itself, an exposure of essays. I mean, was it cathartic to write? I have to just kind of ask you off the top as sort of, I think of myself as a writer sometimes myself, but I mean, it must have been cathartic to write those stories and kind of get it out there. Was it the first time you told some of those stories, or?
Well, and in all actuality, I had been doing them on stage at Sit and Spin, which is a Comedy Central offshoot, and various theaters around town, trying them out as
in front of a live audience.
What?
In front of a live audience?
Yes, in front of live audiences. Comedy Central always filmed them. God knows for what purpose, but they always film them. So I have copies of them. And for various venues around town. There's an organization called Jewish Women's Theater that wanted to do one of my stories as a play. So
Okay.
I was in that play. There were other characters in it. If you read the first story about the gynecologist's office
Yes.
and the prescription he gave me to go to the Hustler store, people
Yes.
people played the Entertainment Tonight director and Larry Flynn, and people played the gynecologist. It was like a play.
Oh,
And
cool.
then I was commissioned to do a one-woman show for the Joshua Tree Comedy Festival one summer. And I called the musical Odd Woman Out, had a lot of songs in it, and some of these very stories, which I acted out. And then an agent came to see it, and she said, I'm a literary agent, and this is a book, and you better go write it. And so I took a year, took her advice. She kind of mentored me, and took 35 of the many stories of my life that had in moments of realization or enlightenment in them. Some of them took place against the backdrops of theater, Broadway theater, or television. For the most part, it's about my inner life and the way it shifted in the context of what I was living as an actor.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it definitely sheds light on, you know, a lot of it's coming of age stuff. It's definitely something that I think, um, I don't want to say it's particularly just for women, but I think young women would get something out of it as far as the coming of age stuff per se. But I mean, I'm getting a lot out of it too, just as from a guy's perspective, some of the stories. I mean, some of them are, a lot of it's from the female perspective, so it's interesting to hear. One of the ones, while we're talking about it, that I found fascinating was at All My Children, when you were writing return fan mails. I forgot the actor's name, but the star of the show, like, was that a common occurrence? Just on a side note of like, just hire, like, you were the people all over the country were thinking they were getting, letters from him. I mean, while it's you just like using your imagination and things like that, I would think almost from an artistic sense, you must have gotten a lot out of that, just to be able to come up with these ideas and these stories of what you're going to write to these people. Maybe putting yourself in the kid's shoes who's writing to him. I don't know if you can maybe talk a little bit about that for people that haven't read the book, but it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it was kind of a power trip to be this hunky television star named Hatch, actually, Richard Hatch, and pretend to be, the kind of tender lover that all these young girls would want. To be kind and interested and noblesse oblige, like coming down from the kingly dais to talk to these little girls wherever they might be. So yes, it was a great acting role. Actually, it was kind of a precursor to being a playwright and writing in men's voices and writing in all kinds of people's voices who I hadn't experienced, who I had to imagine. And I later had people writing for me when I was getting bags and bags of fan mail. I always kind of gave them a hint as to how I wanted to handle things. With young men, I didn't want to give too much of myself because they may get the wrong idea. That happened a lot, by the way. And it was weird. So, yeah, I think it's a very common occurrence. I think a lot of people are overwhelmed and want to be personable, with people that are watching them. So,
Sure.
yeah, it was fun to do that.
And speaking of hunks, to bring it back to Seinfeld, you were, like you mentioned, you were George's girlfriend, and it's funny, like you're such a comedian, but you played, like you mentioned, like straight laced kind of mother.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like I watched the episode, and first when we saw your name, like, oh, Melanie, she was always George's girlfriend. It felt like you were just always there, like just it was so interesting that you just kind of played George's girlfriend so well. But you mentioned his monologue, like that had to just be amazing on set, right? To listen to that monologue about the fire and then you like giving it to him. I mean, how many takes? Any funny stories behind that specific scene?
No, I wanted another take, and Larry wouldn't let me do it. I thought I'd come down too hard on George. I should have held
Yeah,
back.
You are yelling at him quite a bit. Yeah, yeah.
No, I dug it. He said, "That's it, one take," and it was, basically we were winging it. Larry isn't one to give you scripts well in advance and lock you in. He kind of likes you to stay loose and free. Um, so it was a hilarious monologue. What can I say? A typical never mea culpa. George was never guilty of anything. And that was another situation where he exonerated himself by his own warped philosophy. So it was
Right.
really fun to be a part of it. And of course, the final Seinfeld, I guess you've spoken to other people who are in that.
A few,
Yeah.
but we want to get your take for sure. If you want, yeah, go right ahead in the finale because we
Yeah,
know you're on that as well. That must have been a crazy experience.
it was, again, it was just an offer. I was not given a script. None of us were told what we'd be saying, when we went on camera. We didn't know it was a trial. We really didn't know anything. So it was kind of like a game show. We were all very nervous and excited. And I got to hang with all the great characters from Seinfeld, the librarian, Wayne. I got to hang out with the soup Nazi. I mean, I got
Yeah.
all these incredible
Right.
cliches that had become so America's darlings. And Larry, he was like Robin Hood, robbing from the rich to give to his poor actor friends because the network loved him and the show so much that they milked a 1/2 hour show and storyline into an hour and a half special. And he was getting so much money for the episode that he got us all trailers. I mean, we all had incredible trailers. The food was fantastic. And then, we each got our lines before we were in the court trial. And just delivered them by the seat of our pants.
So that had to be
That's
that had to be
incredible.
such an honor, right? They
Yeah.
had 9 seasons. I mean, we talked a bunch from already. Incredible guest stars, and you were one of the very few to get selected to come back. That must have felt
Really?
incredible.
Well, I
Yeah.
thought everybody was on it.
Oh
No,
no.
not everyone. No, definitely not everyone. I mean, there had to be a, like O'Hara said. I mean, they had to obviously want you to come back, but also the story had to permit. I mean, everything about it had to fit, and it's just amazing.
Yes,
That,
we all had to sue George, sue the various characters for their selfishness and lack of
right.
character.
You might have been the biggest one, actually. You would be the main, plaintiff in that trial. I mean, he ran out of a fire, and knocked you and your mother over and children. I mean, it's about as bad as it gets as far as a humanitarian move goes.
Yeah, I think so. I thought it was pretty sucky, really. I did.
and that speaking of that dark, that episode was written by Larry Charles, who's known for the dark episodes. Most of his episodes on Seinfeld, there's some sort of weird dark comedy involved, and this one was no different. And I believe I believe he worked on Fridays too with you. I don't know, how
Oh,
much
yeah.
interaction. Yeah, if you can maybe touch on him on the Friday set, or maybe the Seinfeld set, or the differences there, or what it was like having him, as a writer on that episode, if he was, involved at all.
Well, Larry Charles was like a kid. I was a seasoned actress. I'd already done the New York thing, and I was coming out to Los Angeles as a professional. And Larry was just this kid from Boston. I think he was 18 at the time, but he was already married and had a child. So I didn't
Wow.
know what to make of him. He was just so unusual, and he had a real punk kind of mentality. He wasn't a Hollywood type writer. He was just like a guy from the hood. And he wrote one of our first sketches that got us thrown off the air, which was Diner of the Living Dead. I don't know if you ever saw that on Fridays.
I don't know
It
if I
was
know that one.
kind of a zombie diner where
Just
they
sounds like Larry Charles.
absolutely, and they served things like hand sandwich, and you'd see like a hand on a bun with a side of spleen, and you'd see all these little spleens like deep fried, and all the waiters were zombies, and it was just hilarious. And of course, it got us thrown off several local stations in the South and in the Bible Belt. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to hold on to my hat. Something strange is always going to come out of this guy." And it continued. I think he wrote the Transphibians, which was about humans that transition to become amphibians. And they were like half men, half fish. That was his. And they were all like, "Boop, boop, boop, boop," and they had gills. And well, this is before your time, clearly. I'm really.
Yeah, we did. We're just before our time, kind of. Yeah, the Fridays, but we
But
have
I think,
definitely seen clips and everything. Yeah,
but where you made your mark on that show was clearly
the news.
the Friday edition news, right?
I guess, because
Yeah, and Nancy Reagan, those are always funny clips. I mean, and I know you talked about it like in the book, kind of the nervousness about appearing on Carson. I'm
yeah.
just curious, and I'm trying to have some parallel here. Was there any nervousness, like Carson, on joining the set of Seinfeld, or was it just everyone was so familiar it was just easy?
Oh no, on Carson, they were all like icons. I had been watching them since I was a child. And I had a bevy of William Morris agents. They were kind of like cousins, you know. They always wanted to hang out with me when I was doing stand up at the Improv and stuff. And they came everywhere with me. And they were so nervous that it really shook me up. I had to ask them to leave the green room so that I could just be on my own. I went in the bathroom to hide from them, actually, because they were giving me all these notes that really made no sense to me. Now, hang in there, Tiger, and you can do it. And it just made me more and more nervous. And I had a pre-interview where they ask you a bunch of questions and they decide which ones Johnny will ask you based on the spontaneity of your answer, the color of your answer. And when I came out for the first time and went up on the dais and shook hands with Ed McMahon and then faced Johnny Carson, I was paralyzed. It was like looking at Mount Rushmore or the Lincoln Monument. It was
Wow.
so surreal to see his face moving and talking and smiling to me. And I talk a lot about how I felt inside during the interviews. He had me on a couple of times, actually. He liked me. I don't know why. I was very strange on the show, very nervous and kind of flippant. And in any case, he liked me. He had me back because he wanted me to play Nancy Reagan to his Ronald Reagan. And so we did a Family Feud episode. I don't know if you guys remember that show.
Of course.
With
Of
Richard
course, yeah.
Dawson. the
Yeah,
actor.
yeah.
Yeah, the kissing. Yep.
Yeah. And Johnny wanted me to hit him in the head when he made a mistake. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And so I hit him a little too hard in my zeal to please him. And his head went into the microphone and made a big booming sound. And I was like, oh my God, I've killed him. But he just loved it. He so wanted to be a sketch actor. You know, he'd been trapped on that stage with that chair and that desk for so many years, decades actually. And he really liked doing sketch work. So it was a very great honor to play with him.
Yeah, I mean, that's got.
Did you ever speaking of Nancy Reagan? Did you ever have the chance to meet her?
No, I don't think she cared to meet me after no, but I did a whole event with Rich Little playing Ronald Reagan. We had a parade. We had like security on motorcycles with us. I did an album with Rich Little as Nancy Reagan. I was in a parade. I got a lot of mileage out of being Nancy Reagan. And I remember when I was on the Carson show, I said, now don't be offended. You do a really good impression of me too. But I never heard from her. But I did hang around with Patty Davis, her daughter, who was a guest star on the show on Fridays. And she and I hung out, and it was such a novel thing to hang out with a girlfriend and have the Secret Service like go into the restrooms with you, go to the restaurant with you, go to the screening and sit behind you. It was very different. They were very cool about it. They were like really good actors, but it was an interesting period. She was rebelling against her parents at the time, which is one of the reasons she did our show.
Right.
Yeah, she was really an upstart, but a great girl. Hi, Patty.
So speaking of Fridays, obviously we mentioned Larry David and Michael Richards. Again, that was what, early 80s. Like, how did they change when you met them again, let's say on the Seinfeld set? Were they as you remember, or completely different guys?
Well, they were much richer.
Yeah.
When I met them on the Seinfeld show, Larry had much better therapy. He actually seemed kind of content. And I'd say, how are you? Are you depressed? He said, I'm still depressed, but I have, a much better attitude about it.
Right, easier to handle it.
Yeah. They seem much more, shall I say, relaxed. First of all, it wasn't a live show. There wasn't a lot of competition as to who was going to get stuff on the air on Fridays, like Saturday Night Live. There was always competition about whose material would get on. And that tension was gone because Larry knew all his material would get on, and Michael knew all his bits would be included. So they were very relaxed and very welcoming to me. Jerry, too. I had known Jerry from being a stand-up, and he was very caring and genteel and actually tried to order a product that I had just had patented from me.
The water, right? Yeah, explain that.
Way rotating drain. Hired an engineer to make the thing for me because I'm not an engineer, and he wanted like 3 for his new house. And unfortunately, he didn't offer to manufacture it. It had not been manufactured yet, so I was not able to provide that for him. But yeah,
it's manufactured now, though, right? Or it's out there now? Oh, not yet.
other knockoffs, other styles of products manufactured and infringed upon me in Japan were kind of supplanted my device. My device was a very simple T valve. When you used the drain of the shower, it was a dial, and you turn your foot to the right, and it would go to the recycling tank. And if you dialed your foot to the left, the water would go to the sewer septic tank. And unfortunately, it didn't take off. A lot of products were being thought up at the time, and mine was not the it girl of the products.
If only Shark Tank was around back then, you might have.
Really, I know. Right?
So, Larry David, you left him early '80s. So, did you ever? I mean, were you a fan of Seinfeld? I know, like 1994, it was season 5, literally the peak of the show in our mind. Did you ever get called to try out before that, or was this the one and only opportunity?
I actually did right at its inception. But I was on a show called Parker Lewis Can't Lose at the time. And so I wasn't free to audition for it. And that was the one that got away. What a wonderful thing Julia Louis-Dreyfus had, and wow, how she ran with it.
The Elaine part you were going to try out.
Yeah, she was terrific. But no, and I didn't really hear from Larry again until right after the earthquake. And he called me to come in. I was hoping they'd call me in for something, but I'd sort of put it on the back of my mind. Then I saw a lot of my other friends, Bruce Mahler, Mary Edith Burrell, other people from Fridays were being hired. And I thought, well, when's it my turn? And when my turn came, I just grabbed it, even though it wasn't my favorite part in the world. I wanted to be the low talker or the piano player or I wanted to be one of the funny girls. But being a straight woman to Jason Alexander was a great honor.
It was great. It was an unbelievable role. And your incredible career, it started on the stage. I was just curious what you prefer. Like, where's your heart lie when it comes to acting? Is it the stage? Is it TV? Is it, I know you do voiceover work. I mean, is it where do you feel most, at home as far as an actress goes?
Well, theater stages feel like my home, but frankly, I like working with terrific players in really good writing anywhere the hell it wants to be offered to me. I just did a web series that I think is really great, and I have a great part. I hope it goes. And there was no money for that, but I just loved it. I love my part. I play a gay publisher who's kind of ethically approaching one of her authors in a kind of an inappropriate way. I love talented people. It's my abundance in life. It's my joy. I talk a lot about that in the book. Even if I'm not a big celebrity and making a fortune, I still get to work with such richly talented people, at this phase. And I'm really, really pleased about it.
Yeah, you've worked with a ton of great people. I mean, you mentioned Parker Lewis. Did you work with Tim Stack in Parker Lewis Can't Lose?
He played Parker Lewis's father. He's terrific.
Yeah, we had him.
He just joined the program.
He was great to talk to.
Very
incredible guy. Married with Children. I'm curious about that. Did that come about through Mark Hirschfeld as well, or what was the connection there?
I had auditioned for the original series to play the neighbor next door.
Oh, Marcy.
And I loved the whole premise of that show. I loved the sardonic attitude towards suburban families. It was the anti-sitcom. I was dying to be on it. And I let them know that, but I didn't get to be on it. And so they brought me in for this attorney role. I play the attorney to a thief that breaks into Ed and Neil's house, Al's house.
Yeah.
Al gets into a fight with him, and he gives the guy a broken neck or something. And so I was the attorney for the thief suing Al for his abusive treatment of my client, the thief.
That's one of my favorite shows, Married with Children of all time.
What? Yeah,
and I won because I had an affair in college with my professor, who turned out to be the judge in the case. So that was how I ended up winning. It was a great part. I got to work with Christina Applegate and all of them. A joy. What can I say? Wonderful actors.
Well, another wonderful actor, comedian, and I forgot to bring it up from the Fire episode, is Don Marrero, Ronnie K, the prop comic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. in the bar scene, I mean, yeah, you had some really great. You were in like three main scenes, right, or four actually. Like the beginning with George.
Your line
Just
with George, it's over. It's over for Bozo. Is the way you deliver that one. I don't know if you remember 30 years ago now, but it was a great, just like you're. It's over for Bozo. You finally just like had to let him have it.
Heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was wonderful. Everybody on the show was fantastic. Most of them had been offered their roles. They didn't have to audition. So everybody was really cool and felt very loose and at ease. It was really a great show to be on.
yeah, I mean, think so. Were you a Seinfeld fan? I mean, I know that it was season 5, but were you actually like a big fan, like watching all the episodes? You seem to mention like the low talker and all that stuff. It seems like you were in tune with what was going on.
Will you keep this under your hat? I mean, I was a sporadic watcher, and that year I hadn't been watching at all, really. So it came like a shock out of the blue when I heard from them. I was a sporadic watcher. I can't say that I was a big fan of any sitcom. Larry's
Mhm.
would have been the one I was a fan of. If I was sort of in television, and like if you're a secretary, you don't go home and type all night. So I was in television so
Right.
much. I didn't have this tendency to go home and relax watching television. So
That's fair.
sporadic. And I didn't know a lot of the running gags, and I didn't know. So Larry Charles had to sort of give me a quick primer on why all the women are contemptuous of George. I said, "Oh, I didn't know that. I just thought I liked him." He says, "No, you're not taking him seriously at all." I said, "Oh, I'm not. I thought I was seeing him as a father for my child and all that stuff."
You got to reverse everything with that.
So I had to get more cynical
Yes.
toward him. Although in front of my mother at the birthday party where the hamburger fire started, I was very upbeat, because I wanted my mother to like him and I wanted my son to like him and all that.
And she did. She's like, "You seem like such a
Yeah,
wonderful
she did love
man."
him
Yeah.
until he
Right.
knocked over. Obviously, a stunt man, but it's still an amazing move when he just elbows her down. Um, Incredible. Yeah, John Favreau was in there. That was pre-Swingers. I mean, that might have been one of his. I think Rudy had maybe come out, but I don't think. I'm not even sure. I think it was taped, maybe not even come out yet by that point. That
Yeah.
was might have been one of his first roles. I mean, I don't know how much interaction you had with him, but like you said, he's got onto some pretty big things.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had no idea what he would become. And I did see Swingers. Heather Graham was a friend of mine. We were in acting class
Oh
together. I
wow.
played her mother sometimes. So I was very interested in that. And then when I saw it was him in the film, I knew him without the clown makeup. Um, and I saw that he directed and created it. I was blown away. It was like, all right, one of the extras. He's come out of the chorus and into a starring role. I also love that thing he did. Was it called The Chef? It was about
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
a trailer. What do you call it? A truck restaurant. What do you call those things? I'm
Food
sorry.
truck.
Yeah,
Food
a
truck.
food truck. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm losing it. You're seeing it now. So yeah, he was great in that. He created that too. He's a genius.
Yeah, he's had a great career, and I mean, you've had a great career, and for us, this is really special because I mean, The Fire. Listen, they did 168 episodes. We rank it. We did rankings. We ranked The Fire 35th. Give it
Wow.
top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
just a
think so. I
special
think
episode, and
The
George
and
Kramer
you
had,
beat.
yeah.
George had about 120 girlfriends, and then when there was a listing of the most beautiful girlfriends on Friday on Seinfeld, I was number 120. So just to put things in perspective, there
Oh,
were
that's not.
Who made that list?
Yeah, no. If it's not from us, it's not a definitive Seinfeld list. We'll make sure to put that list down.
Melanie, Robin,
Correct.
top 5 girlfriend, hands down.
We'll correct that
nice.
list.
Thank you very much, Chris.
This has been amazing, Melanie. We really appreciate your time. And where can people get your book? I mean, obviously Amazon, but I just want to make sure that is that the best place to get it? Amazon? Just
There's lots of places. You can get it on Apple Books or Barnes and Noble. You can go to my website, melaниechartoff.com, and it's right on the front page. Just click the link.
I actually listened to it with your narration. I like the Audible versions now. That's what I do
Yeah,
now.
I think
It's a
the
lot
Audible
easier.
is my best because I perform all the stories.
Yeah, you do like your mom's voice at times, your dad's voice. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
cool.
and I get to sing on it. I got to sing a few times, so that was fun too. Well, thank you so much for looking at my
Yeah,
book. I
thank
really
you,
appreciate
Melanie.
it.
This was great. We really
My
appreciate it.
book is a 5-star hit on Amazon, and it's building numbers, so I have high hopes for it.
It's great. It's a great read. It's really taking a deep dive, and you're really opening up, and it's really inspirational. So thank you.
Thank you, and good
Thank
luck
you,
with
Melanie.
the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And hope say hi to your mother. I mean, God bless. That's amazing. Have a safe trip. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks, Melanie.
Have a great night.
You too.